What's good, YouTube? It's your boy, Blue Blood Sports TV, back at y'all with another one. So, we got some more bad news for undefeated 3-division world champion, former junior welterweight undisputed world champion, currently the WBO welterweight world champion, who is widely considered the number one pound-for-pound fighter in the world, Terence Crawford, as it is proven that undefeated unified WBC IBF welterweight world champion superstar boxer Errol Spence Jr. is indeed a bigger star within the sport of boxing than not just Terence Crawford, but he is indeed the bigger star than what most people perceive as the biggest star in the sport of boxing, and that's 4-division world champion Mexican superstar boxer who is currently the unified WBC WBA super middleweight world champion Saul Canelo Alvarez, superstar boxer in the sport of boxing. The numbers are, the proof is in the pudding, as Errol Spence would put it. Errol Spence had fought around the same time. He fought December 5th against Danny Garcia. Canelo Alvarez fought December 19th against Caleb Smith. With that said, Errol Spence, the official numbers from Texas have come out. And Errol Spence, by landslide, surpassed Canelo Alvarez and undefeated 2-division world champion, currently the WBA 135 pound world champion simultaneously, who is considered a superstar, Gervonta Tank Davis. He fought in San Antonio, Texas, against 4-division world champion Mexican superstar boxer Leo Santa Cruz. Okay, so the full numbers have now come in with the gates, the sales, and the live revenue, right? And Errol Spence has now been proven to have done 2,615,075. That's how much money he brought in for the live gate, with 14,508 tickets sold. And then obviously they always have comp tickets, right? So he had 700 comp tickets, 704 complimentary tickets, okay? Now, when you compare that to Saul Canelo Alvarez and his fight in San Antonio, Texas, right? When he took on Caleb Smith, he beat out Canelo Alvarez, okay? A 13-month ring break ended Canelo Alvarez' 12-round virtual shutout of Caleb Smith. Canelo Alvarez on December 19th, he fought against Caleb Smith. He did a live gate of $2,303,100, okay? So Errol Spence Jr. brought in 300,000 plus more money live gate than Canelo Alvarez has done, okay? And he sold 14,000, nearly 15,000 tickets, and Canelo Alvarez sold almost 13,000 tickets, okay? So he's done bigger numbers than Canelo Alvarez has done, okay? So it's proven that he's the bigger star. They both were allowed to have 16,000 fans in attendance, and Canelo Alvarez didn't sell as much as Errol Spence Jr., and his gate didn't bring in the same amount of revenue. Errol Spence brought in more revenue. He sold more tickets. He's just a bigger star all the way around, including that of Gervonta Tank Davis. Gervonta Tank Davis, with his fight with Leo Santa Cruz, he did $1,466,475. Okay, so essentially, Errol Spence lapped Gervonta Tank Davis by over a million, nearly 1.2 million more dollars he brought in than Gervonta Tank Davis did, and Gervonta Tank Davis sold nearly 8,000 tickets with 747 comp tickets. Okay. So Errol Spence, is doing the bigger numbers. He's proven to be the bigger star. Why is this bad news for Terence Crawford? Because Errol Spence offered Terence Crawford a 60-40 split in revenue, to negotiate to stage their massive unification showdown, which is considered the biggest fight in the sport of boxing. And Terence Crawford is stating that he wants it to be 50-50 split. Well, Errol Spence's numbers, we just see his numbers are even higher than that of what is considered to be the face of the sport of boxing, Canelo Alvarez. So the proof is in the pudding that Errol Spence is indeed the face of the sport of boxing. He has surpassed Canelo Alvarez in numbers. And then when you look at his pay-per-views, Errol Spence has done 975,000 pay-per-view solds to compared to Terence Crawford, total combined 210,000 pay-per-view sold. So the proof is there in the pudding that Errol Spence is the biggest star. Errol Spence is being generous with his 60-40 offer to to Terence Crawford, to stage their massive showdown. Terence Crawford wants a 50-50, but the numbers don't lie. The proof is there in the pudding. With that said, Errol Spence did talk about a possible showdown with Canelo Alvarez in the future. Well, you combine those two numbers together, and you got for a massive pay-per-view event between Canelo Alvarez and Errol Spence, should that take place somewhere far down in the future. As Errol Spence stated that he wants to become undisputed in the welterweight division, 147 pound. Then he wants to do so at junior middleweight, 154 pounds. Then he'll look into a possible showdown with Canelo Alvarez. With that said, Errol Spence is on the verge of going into a unification showdown with now WBA super champion, welterweight superstar, Cuban superstar boxer, Yordenis Ugas. We know 8-division legendary former WBA welterweight world champion, iconic superstar boxer Manny Pacquiao is stripped of the WBA, which saw Yordenis Ugas get elevated to the super champion. So with that said, Errol Spence is going to have even more leverage on Terence Bud Crawford. Why? Because now he will hold 3 belts. He will hold the WBC, the WBA, and the IBF should he beat Yordenis Ugas in a unification showdown that more than likely is going to take place at AT&T Stadium in Arlington, Texas, at Cowboy Stadium. And will more than likely, Errol Spence was going to be the favorite. Styles make fights. It's a bad matchup, in my opinion, for Yordenis Ugas. Errol Spence is more versatile. He has more power. He's a southpaw. He has more experience. Yordenis Ugas doesn't have much power, punching power. He doesn't have quick feet, and his timing can sometimes be off. So I think that Errol Spence is going to win that fight, unanimous decision, if he don't stop Yordenis Ugas. I wouldn't be surprised. So with that said, with these numbers coming out, with the pay-per-view numbers we know to be true, and with the fact that he'll be a 3-belt holder, he'll be unified 3 times over. Going into negotiation with Terence Crawford, there will be nothing Terence Crawford could do at that point in time to be able to level out the playing field in negotiations with Errol Spence Jr. Errol Spence Jr. is playing chess and Terence Crawford is playing checkers, and it's not adding up. There seems to be a showdown on the verge with Terence Crawford and 2-time welterweight world champion superstar boxer Showtime Sean Porter, as Sean Porter is Terence Crawford's mandatory WBO challenger and number 1 in their ranking system. But even if Terence Crawford was to fight Sean Porter and beat Sean Porter, well, guess what? Errol Spence already previously beat Sean Porter in the unification bout, okay? The fight with Terence Crawford and Sean Porter is going to be a title fight because Terence Crawford's title will be on the line, but it's not going to be a unification bout, okay? Errol Spence beat him in a unification bout, and it was on pay-per-view, and it did 325,000 pay-per-view buys, and it did that almost nearly surpassed Canelo Alvarez's gate as well, okay? Errol Spence's showdown with Showtime Sean Porter did, according to these reports, he did $2,257,155 with on nearly 13,000 tickets sold. Okay, so with that said, Canelo Alvarez gate right now against Caleb Smith, that number is still bigger than Gervonta Tank Davis's number, but Canelo Alvarez's number is $2,303,100. So it was only 100. He only did 58,000 more. 54,000 more tickets sold. 54,000 more dollars he earned at the gate, live gate. Canelo Alvarez did. So you could put into perspective that Errol Spence and Sean Porter nearly surpassed Canelo Alvarez as well. Okay, so his fight with Danny Garcia definitely did better numbers, and his fight with Sean Porter is on the same par as Canelo Alvarez, proving that he's just as big of a star. Okay. And not to mention 13,000 tickets sold, okay? In this fight, and this was the Danny Garcia fight we got to take in mind into consideration this is during the pandemic. He outsold both fights, did bigger than Gervonta Tank Davis. And Canelo Alvarez didn't even sell 12,000 tickets. That Sean Porter fight did 13,000 tickets. So the Sean Porter fight was already a success. He did a great live gate. He's just doing the bigger numbers. So the proof is in the pudding. He nearly surpassed Canelo Alvarez gate with the fight with Sean Porter. So Terence Crawford, even if he beats Sean Porter, that fight will have to take place in Texas, so or Florida, so they can have fans in attendance. So we even have anything to compare it to judge it by, and the fight will have to be on pay-per-view, which so we can have something to judge it by. But legendary promoter, top-ranked CEO who promotes Terence Crawford, Bob Arum, says that he don't want to put any shows on pay-per-view, and he don't want to pay Sean Porter big money. So even if he beats Sean Porter, he still won't. The numbers won't add up, and he still won't be able to level out the playing field in negotiations. So this is unfortunate news for Terence Crawford, and this is fortunate news for Errol Spence. He's showing that he's an even bigger star than Canelo Alvarez. But that's all I got for y'all. Drop a comment in the comment section. Let me know what y'all think. Y'all already know what it is. It's your boy Blue Blood Sports TV. Hate, like, comment, and subscribe. You haven't subscribed, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, hit the bell icon to get all the new notifications. Follow me on Instagram at Blood Sports TV, all one word. Y'all already know what it is. Shout out to the entire LDBC. Shout out to New Media. Shout out to Black Media Row. Make sure you like and share these videos. That's all I got for y'all. Peace.